And we welcome you to the Davenport University Football Signing Day Special here on February 5th, 2025. I'm Rick Berkey, the head football coach. Sparky McEwen is here. Exciting day, Coach. We're going to talk about your mid-year transfers that are already in-house also, and one of your largest ever signing of high school crop of potential players coming down the road. And like I said, a lot of excitement through the program, and the work starts now, Coach.
Oh, it does. It does. We've always talked about that mid-year crew coming in. And, this year was a strange year just because of what's going on with the transfer portal and the NIL, conversations. And so it took us down to the last wire, wherein we got these kids signed and ready to go here for the, second semester. So it's been since that last game, it's been tough. We've been grinding around here, and today is a happy day for us because it winds down the recruiting trail, and then we get to get back on campus with our guys.
Well, speaking of that last game, we need to reflect on that before we go into this year. Certainly, it's about winning. That your program's about winning. You guys are all about winning. But it has to mean something in the back of their mind to know that in your last game at Ferris State, your guys led the eventual national champions at the half at their place.
It was the guys played hard in that game, and just going back to reflect back on that game, our guys played hard, and Ferris came out, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they may not have been totally ready to roll, just to start right out, and we kind of woke them up there, and they came out in the second half, and that was 2 years in a row. We were winning the year before at half, and they went into halftime, made adjustments, and the student athletes over there decided to say, hey, okay, enough's enough, and they got after us. And that's where we're at in our program. We know we can play with, the best in the country, but we've got to take the next step. And successful year for us last year. We know where we are in our program, and we know where we want to be. And it's a lot easier for these guys to understand that when you play some of the best football teams in the country right in your own backyard. And we have a conference that's, not only getting better, but getting deeper.
All right, well, here's what we got lined up for you today with our signing day special. We got two parts of it. The first part will be the mid-year transfers that have committed to join your program, Coach. We'll talk about them. Then we'll take a small break, and then we'll come back with the high school signees. A lot of, as we said, one of the biggest signing number of high school products that we've seen so far right now. So let's get right at it. We'll touch on it. We'll mention the player. We're going to go down this in alphabetical order, and these players are already here, Coach, right? They're already on campus?
Yeah, we have 22 transfers on campus, and, in that small window, we had to get these guys through the administrative parts of it, and then obviously the physical move, because out of those 22, I think 12 of these guys are from, hometowns or from around the country.
Well, let's start out from Tiffin University, transferred in, linebacker from Fort Wayne, Indiana, Dylan Bennett.
Dylan Bennett is a young man that, going into the process, we always talk about taking the best available athlete. This year, in the portal for us, we feel like we're pretty deep at linebacker. But this here young man happens to be a hybrid, linebacker / rover type, gentleman, and what a tremendous athlete. You're going to hear about him quite a bit this coming fall. Flies around, gets after it, and he's as physical as they come. So we're excited about him, and spring ball is going to be big for him.
Wide receiver from Lexington, Kentucky came to us from Thomas More University, Evan Brown.
You should remember, Evan, you called a touchdown of his when we played Thomas More. He scored a touchdown on we were lucky to pick up this product here. He was actually freshman of the year in the GMAC 2 years ago. So adding that depth, and as you know, Rick, we lost 7 of our 8 in our two deep. So losing those type of talents, we're going to replace some guys that, man, they've had a nice decorated career here. When you lose those type of talented kids, you got to replace them with some talent.
You mentioned earlier the portal there and losing 7 out of 8 in your two deeps on the wide receiver segment. When you have that type of attrition, do young men contact you about that, or is it all on you and your staff to reach out and find more wide receivers?
It's a great question. It works both ways. When we realized midway through the season that we're going to be losing 7 to 8 in our two deep, and at that point in time, you've got to make a plan put together a plan of attack, for the offseason, because that window, it's tight. Okay, it's tight, and we had a plan in place, and we were able to land some pretty talented young people. Now the other part to that is getting them in here and ready to roll. So a big part hats goes off to our staff. Was getting these identifying these talents, and then obviously getting them signed and here for second semester.
Speaking of losses, you lost some quality on the defensive line. Jamonte Peck comes to mind in particular, but you helped fill that gap. You went to a guy from Sarasota, Florida, went to Campbellsville University, defensive lineman Jaden Cray.
We're pretty high. We're pretty high on Jaden. Jaden has had a nice, career thus far. Started out at Central Michigan University, and it went down to Campbellsville University, and he had a, all-conference, year. There put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, led the team in sacks, and he's one of those guys that we felt like, we lost a few guys up front. Okay, but we wanted to add depth as far as speed rusher. So going to get him in this conference was a big plus.
You were able to take advantage of a situation, unfortunately, for a lot of young athletes at Concordia University dropped its athletic programs. Am I correct on that?
That is correct. That is correct.
And so you were able to get a local guy from my hometown, Wyoming, just outside Grand Rapids, played at Concordia, Noah Drake, an offensive lineman.
Yeah, no, we, in our offensive line structure there, we have not lost a lot of guys this year. We lost an all-conference, performer, and lost Sam Lofton. So, right now returning on offense, that's going to be our deepest position. So, but we did need to fill, that spot, whether it be a guard or a center. And Noah coming in, was very unfortunate what happened there at Concordia. But, he happens to be a local flavor here, okay, and getting him in, and he's got some experience there in the trenches, so getting him here, adding to our depth, he's going to be able to come in this spring and compete for a job.
Well, Justin Evans is a linebacker from Detroit, and he went all the way out to western New Mexico to play collegiately. You've got him to transfer back to the Great Lakes State. He's going to be a Panther.
One of the things about the transfer portal, you have stories like this where, sometimes for whatever reason you get young people to go great distances from home, and once they get out there, they find out that it's not exactly what they want, or it could be a circumstance, maybe family needs them to be a little closer. So getting him back here, he's from the east side of the state, and getting him back home, it was fun recruiting him because, he knew he had an opportunity to come back home and play, and he's going to once again continue to add to that depth in that linebacking room.
Speaking of back home and back to that wide receiver group, young man right from Caledonia, just about a stone's throw from where we speak right now, Devin Fridley Bell, wide receiver, started out at Albion College. He's back in his hometown to play for you.
He is. I'm excited about him too. Already, guys are already talking about him and what he brings to the table. He's a guy that in that same room where we lost those 7 receivers, he's going to have a great chance of going to compete for a job right away. He's got starts under his belt there at Albion. One of the things for me, Rick, is that even though, we lost a lot of guys, I just didn't want to replace them with guys that didn't have, experience in numbers. And so he brings some numbers to the table. He's going to come in as a slot. He's already polished up pretty good, so I'm excited about his future here.
Well, young man that played for Roosevelt University, who we played last year for the first time, is they're now a GLIAC member, defensive back from Lancaster, California, Isaiah Grant.
One of the things about it is that every time that we, go into playing an opponent, we get to look over the scouting reports. And this is a young man that we saw in the scouting report that was pretty good. And then all of a sudden, when the season was over and guys jump into the portal for whatever reason, and Isaiah's a young man that, here's a guy that's from out in California area, okay? And he went into the portal and he wanted to go into a better situation for himself, and we remember playing him, and now, the recruiting begins, okay? And he remembered playing against us. He talked about how he loved the way that looked like we operated, So getting him here is a big plus for us. I don't want to go against him now. He gets to play with us.
Well, speaking of somebody you played in the GLIAC, Asher Gregory is a running back who played at Michigan Tech. He's an East Lansing native, and he's joining the Panther program.
Yeah, you made calls on this guy here too. He's one that when you think of Kendall Williams, he's a lot like K-Dub, and that same body type, quickness, great hands, personality. He's quiet too, just like Kendall. And but he's a guy that's going to help us in the special teams department, the backfield, and as a slot receiver. So, and here's another case where this young man, he comes down, back here south, and he just wanted to get a little closer to home. He's right up the road from East Lansing.
Well, speaking of guys coming over, Myron Harris, certainly one of the great additions you had in your program. And his younger brother, Cephas Harris, goes by Trey, started out at Youngstown State, and you've got him to join and follow Brother Myron here in the running back room.
Well, don't forget about the brother Miles that we have here. So
that's right, Brother Miles is there too.
That family,
on the other side.
Yeah, that family has been tremendous to the Davenport family here, and we're very thankful to have those guys as part of the Panther family. And wow, he's already came in this place once again and made an impact on his teammates. And wait till you see him; he's put together, and the running styles are pretty much similar. A lot of guys like to say that he's a cross between Kendall and Myron. So knowing that, Rick, what type
exciting.
of athlete, what type of athlete that we have here. So excited about him. He's got 3 years left in the backfield, and boy, he's put together like he's a senior already. So we're very proud of the moves that we made there because we've lost our top 3 backs. So between receiver and running back, we've totally had to go in and replenish that, that talented area there. So we lost a lot of yards and points, but hopefully, those couple young guys we just talked about can come in and help us.
He could be a tremendous addition, we should say.
Wow.
Okay, I had to get that
I
out
knew
there.
I missed you. I knew why I missed you. That
All
was
right.
it.
You lost an all-conference kicker this year, and you've got a new one coming in. He's a Brighton native from over on the east side of the state, went to Washtenaw Community College. Griffin Lawson. Tell us about Griffin.
Well, I'm going to tell you about what we lost. We lost a guy right now that's got an NFL opportunity ahead of him in Brian Gilo. What a tremendous talent, 3 years all-conference for us, and was the best kicker here, not only in our conference but in our region. He's got a heck of an opportunity ahead of him here. He'll be part of the pro day, and we're so proud of him. And we've been really good in the special teams area, and a lot of it has to do with we've had some great punters, some great long snappers, great kickers, and now it's going to be open battle. Now we got to replace a guy that's if I'm not mistaken, he may be Brian Gilo. I think is our all-time leading scorer here at Davenport. So. Those kickers are going to have some shoes to fill, and we've got a couple coming in that I feel good about. Those guys coming in competing.
All right, we're another local who was at Concordia before they dropped athletics at the end of last school year. Javion Lyons, a 5'10" defensive lineman, right from here in GR.
You talked about it earlier. We lost a number of guys inside. We bring back a couple guys on the perimeter on our D line, but inside, we lost some beef. And this young man had a very solid, career there before they ceased operations. And we're just hoping he can come in and compete and give us depth on the inside at the tackle position.
Burlington, Kentucky, his hometown, went to Los Angeles Pierce Community College, where you've gotten the players before. Tenoris Merkel, a wide receiver at 6'3", sounds like a good target.
He is, on the perimeter, we like to have a little length on the outside in the slot. We're not, not as tall, but on the perimeter, we like to have a little length there and guys that can run. He should fit right in where we left off with some of those guys with Hakeem and then Preston leaving. When you lose those kind of guys with length and Stone, you got to find someone to replace him. He had a good sophomore campaign there, and our hopes is that he comes here and fills in those shoes that those guys have left.
Well, not only did you lose Brandon Gilo, your terrific best all-time kicker here, you also lost Joe Seidel, the Sultan of Snap, probably the best long snapper maybe that you will ever have. You've had for sure, but maybe that you'll ever have. He was automatic for you, and so you had to go out and get a new one. And you went to Las Vegas, Nevada was the home of Jace Neely, who went to Concordia again.
Seidel, guess what? He will tell you he's the best long snapper as well. So, but So we've had to, once again, you never take this for granted. In the time that we've called football here, especially when Seidel has snapped, he's never had a bad snap. And that alone for head coaches and for coordinators, special team coordinators, that's a huge plus. So we have to replace, long snapper, punter. So we got a lot of work to do starting this spring, and this young man does a really good job, and he's going to have some stiff competition, and that's what you want in that room, build some pressure, have some great competition. So when it comes time to kicking games, those guys are actually comfortable in that zone.
So in the spring, like you mentioned, a lot of long snapping snap downs, or what do you call it when they, showdowns with for snappers?
Well, they're doing it already. Those
Okay.
guys, we have a contraption set up there in the locker room where those guys, if they want to go in there and get reps snapping, there's 3 different targets that they can hit. So they have a little fun with those things. So it prepares them for their spring.
Back to the wide receiver room again from Roosevelt University. He played in his hometown of Chicago, but you've got Keontae Nixon, another 6'3" wideout.
You remember this guy? He's the one that
Yes.
led the GLIAC in receiving, and he was a first-team GLIAC performer at Roosevelt. He was on that first team with Kendall and Preston, and he went back into the portal. Here's a young man that started out his career at Central Michigan University, and he's a guy that's also on the NFL radar. So we want to get another talent in that could replace Preston, on the outside. That's going to, encourage a little more help. And having him here, what a fine young man, just having him here. And he's actually in that same demeanor as Preston as well, but getting him here, it's been nice, just knowing that once again at Davenport University we can attract, those type of talents.
Well, we mentioned Ferris State a little while ago, the national champs in Division II for the third time in 4 years. Well, they had a young man named Caleb Parrish, who was a tight end in their program. He's from Mason in the capital area, and you've got him now joining your program.
Once again, there's another one of those situations where when it comes to the transfer portal, guys for whatever reason, they may make a decision that, it's not the place for them. He went on to have a fine freshman campaign there, and we actually, recruited him out of high school. And, but here's one of those deals where here's an opportunity for him to potentially go in and play early. We lost the starting tight end in Keith, last year. So, that position is going to be wide open. We have Clint returning, and then there's a host of guys that are pretty talented. So, as you know, we play 3 of them. So those guys are going to have a great competition, a great battle here in the spring. And he's here, and we're excited about him because he's got all 4 years left.
Young man from Racine, Wisconsin, went to Missouri Southern State University, wide receiver, not as big at 5'10", George Sims.
That was our latest addition to that receiving room because we lost so many of those guys. But you want to talk about a talent. Here's another young man that, he's in that AC jetpack mode, where this guy can really run. And we feel like we got 2 of those guys that we've brought in this class that can really run. And, as you know, when you have a young man like Jetpack, it's going to be hard to replace something like that, and that's been in our system, class guy. Guys that, when it was time to make something happen, Jetpack always came through for us. So getting this young man here, man, wait till you see him. He is definitely a talent. Excited about what we can do with him, and he can play inside, he can play outside, and he's going to have a promising career here that's left.
We're going to mention one other player transferring from Concordia State. And I wanted to ask you specifically about when you spoke with these young men from Concordia University that had their athletic programs just completely dropped by the school, what was their state of mind? Because it had to be really discouraging for them because they had to invest. I'm sure they were invested academically, athletically in that school, and all of a sudden the school said, we're not playing sports anymore.
It was tough. Obviously we're very sympathetic to, their situation there. And no one should have to go through that where, you've invested so much time, into a program and, academically and athletically, and then all of a sudden they make an announcement that they're not going to be around anymore. And, a number of these guys we'd already knew about, when they were in high school and things like that. But now this opportunity, here it is, the program's gone, you got to move on with your career. And to be able, think about these guys, they were playing NAI. Now they're moving up pretty much to D2. So, this is a promotion for them. This is a good opportunity for them, So after they get through figuring out that, hey, we're not coming back here to Concordia, we got to move on. Now the recruiting process starts, and, we would like to consider ourselves one of the better programs to win their services. So once again, these are guys that's going to come in, fairly get an opportunity to get on the field and do what they did there at Concordia.
And that fourth player from Concordia is New Baltimore, Michigan native Caden Thomas, who will join that kicking derby contest.
Yeah, he's probably the most decorated of the guys that's here. He's a guy that's got a lot of starts under his belt, so he's got a lot of points, that he had there at Concordia. So he won't be a stranger to competition and pressure, and that's what we're looking for. So he'll be given a fair shot just like all those other guys, but it just so happens that experience-wise, he's got a leg up on the rest of the other guys.
From Holt, Michigan, in the Lansing area, came out of Trine University, defensive back rather, Charles Thompson.
This young man here, is one that we've been watching from a distance. We think that he's a player that has got good length, and he can come in here because we lost a few DBs last year. One was an All-American. The other kid was all-conference performer at the safety position. So we've got some spots that we're going to have to fill here, and that we're going to have to fill them in a hurry. So when you get kids like this that's got some experience, they're going to get a great opportunity.
Well, you've got a couple of talented quarterbacks coming back next year, but a young man from San Diego, California, went to Southwestern Community College. Connor Underhill, a quarterback, is going to join that derby and add some depth to that quarterback room.
He is. We felt like coming back this year, we pretty much lost a couple quarterbacks in that room, and we know we got some good depth or starting talent coming back, but we also got to add to that talent in that room, because I think it was 3 years ago when we went through about 5 or 6 quarterbacks. Oh, man, it was, knock on wood. We don't want that to happen again. But so I felt like we need to add some depth to that room. This young man is a fierce competitor. He really wants it. He's very engaged, to the system that we have here. He wants to learn. Already the locker room has welcomed him with open arms. So he's taking on water right now, man. It's going fast for him because he knows we start spring ball here, in just a couple weeks, and so he's in there grinding through it just so he can get caught up before the summer hits. Jared
Vines is a defensive back from Detroit, went to North Dakota State University, and if you play defense at North Dakota State, you can hit. Without knowing anything about him, I can tell you that.
Well, before he went to North Dakota State, he was at Eastern Michigan. Okay. And then back, this guy's been here for a while now. I remember him when I was at Ferris State recruiting, when he was a junior, actually. And he was a very talented young man, one of the better talents in the state of Michigan. And he ended up going to Eastern Michigan. So that relationship that I built with him back then kind of carried over to now, especially in the recruitment process of him. So I'm excited about him. And, losing Chris Thompson, losing some of the guys, that we did at the corner position, here's one now that can step in there and give you that kind of talent that you need to be successful here in the GLIAC.
A second transfer from Missouri Southern State, joining George Sims, Jermaine Young Jr., a defensive end from Chicago.
This is one of the speed rushers I was telling you about. We've got to have guys. We felt like last year at the defensive end spot, that we were pretty solid. I think we were second in the league in sacks, but we wanted to get a guy that had a mixture of power and speed. And both these guys that we've acquired here, we felt like that we answered that call. To get some guys with a little more weight to them, that has the speed and has the power as well.
Did Jermaine help get George here? Did George help get Jermaine here, or were they just total separate recruitments?
You're talking about
the fruit from Missouri Southern, yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that because Jermaine helped get George here,
okay.
And that's how that works, by the way.
Yeah.
They happen to know each other, and it worked out great because they do know each other. It helped us in the recruiting, process, and we're excited because both those guys, those guys that you just, put in those two rooms, they're going to have something to do with starters here.
All right, and our final mid-year transfer, again, all the transfers we mentioned are here on campus taking classes and working out already in their spare time. Back to that wide receiver room from Mansfield, Texas, and Bethany College, Michael Young.
Michael Young's a young man that, wow, what a career. It was late getting him because I know UNLV was in on this guy. Here's a guy that's going to be comparable to the Jetpack. Okay, he has that type of speed, and in this conference you've got to have that type of speed, and you got to get him up off you. You got to get those safeties to back up a little bit. And this guy here, he can really run. He can really run, and I'm excited for him in his spring. He loves it here. We haven't had a lot of Texans, come here, and getting this one out of Texas was big for us.
All right, well, that's your 22 mid-year transfers. Again, all already on hand at Davenport. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about the high school signings on the Davenport University Football Signing Day Special here on DUPanthers.com.